First, we make our habits, and then our habits make us. I came across this quote when I was reading Atomic Habits by James Clear, and it was one of the most profound quotes that it really made me take a step back and realize how prevalent it was in my life. Now, if we really put this into perspective, 98% of our life is driven by our unconscious habits. So let's just say, for example, when you wake up in the morning and you brush your teeth, that's a habit. You don't even think about doing it, you just do it. When you drive to work, you don't even have to think about the route that you're going to work. You just do it. And most things in life, we just do them without conscious effort, without conscious thought. That is what a habit is doing something without conscious effort. And so when we think about our life in itself, we have to think that really most of our life is driven by our habits. And so if we're running through our life without really any kind of intention behind the habits that we have, then we're going to be driven by our unconscious habits that are based in the past. And if we want to create something different in our future, then we have to get really intentional about creating habits that support us and don't suppress us. And so I want to break down really three core ideas or habits that I've taken on in my life that I've realized have had such a massive impact on me. And through speaking with many, many really successful entrepreneurs and business people through the podcast and just in general, I found that these are really three commonalities that I found in most people. The first habit is the habit of learning. When we leave school, many of us stop learning. We stop giving effort to doing things that actually challenge us, not just intellectually, but physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, in every aspect of our life. We have to think that if we treat life like a game, then every opportunity to fail, every opportunity to learn something is an opportunity to become a better version of ourselves. And for many of us, we leave school and we see ourselves as a stagnant idea. We see ourselves as this self image of who we think we are, what we think we're capable of, what we think the path of life is supposed to be for us. And we stay on that path. We stay on that unconscious habit of acting as if we are this kind of person and not act as if we can become this kind of person. We can create this kind of life. Most people can't really detach themselves from who they think they are. And so they act in accordance to who they perceive themselves to be, which is always limiting. And so learning is one of the most impactful things that you can do. And this is in any aspect of life. And I'm going to use the example that me and James Altucher touched on a podcast that we had a few weeks ago. I think this is so valuable because for so many of us, the difficult part is taking action. It's putting ourselves out there. It's getting uncomfortable. It's putting ourselves in a position to be vulnerable, really to fail and experiment and see what we're capable of, see what we like, see what we don't like. But what happens is that for so many of us, we don't give ourselves the opportunity, we don't give ourselves the permission to learn forward and to actually fail on purpose. And what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, you want to start a business, you want to leave your job, you want to do something that's different than what you have been doing. If you try to jump and immediately jump into doing something on your own, it's going to be really difficult. And it's going to be difficult regardless of what you do because it's out of the ordinary. But if you were to go to join a startup and be a part of a company that's maybe 10 to 12 people, maybe even less, maybe a little bit more, and you start to see what that company is doing, it'll give you the insight that you need to go then do it on your own. Never do we really think about, oh, I'm going to work at that job because I want to learn the skill sets that I need to go and do it on my own. I think it's really important for us to take this perspective in because we think that it has to be a clear cut path to where we think that we want to go, that we never give ourselves the opportunity to really learn in different things and be in a constant state of learning. Gay Hendricks, a therapist and author of 40 plus books and has done some massive things in his work of consciousness and expansion, has realized that the number one thing that we have in our life, the number one skill that we can develop is our ability to wonder, our ability to question our life, our ability to question what things could be like, and our ability to really question who we can become. Because like I said earlier, we leave school and we start to see ourselves as stagnant. We start to see life as stagnant. But I want this first habit of learning to be ingrained in your brain to help you recognize that if you treat life like a video game and you treat everything like a learning opportunity, then I guarantee you will put yourself in positions to win. And so when you go into things with the ideology that this is going to be a learning opportunity, your mind, your reticular activating system, a part of your prefrontal cortex, will start to seek out ways that that's going to serve you and ways that that's actually going to help you learn and improve and become a better version of yourself. If you just got a red car and you were driving around and you start seeing that a bunch of red cars are on the road, it's not because that they weren't there before, but it's because you're starting to notice them. And so when you go into things with the ideology that I'm going to learn, I want this to be a learning opportunity, well, then you're going to start seeking out the opportunities that are there for you that have always been there, but you start to actually look for them. And it's you taking on this mindset of I am going to learn not just trying to get into something to earn, or not just trying to get into something to win or to get to the top of the line of whatever you're trying to get to. Recognize that the whole purpose of life is to enjoy the passage of time, and you have to get really comfortable with learning and failing a hell of a lot. And it's going to be the best thing that you ever do in your life, is just always being in a constant state of learning, whether that's reading new books or taking in new podcasts or speaking with new humans. Like, my podcast is the best thing that I've ever done in my life, because I am not only building my brand and building my business at the same time, but I'm also learning from people that I would want to learn from regardless. Like, people that I've read their books, and now I get to actually ask them questions about their books and their life. And I think that that's so powerful, but you can do that in any aspect of life. Number two is a happiness habit. Now, I don't think many people see this in this frame, but I think it's one of the most valuable things that I've taken on in my life, is that happiness is a habit. It's not a mental state. If we see it as a mental state, it's something that's fleeting. It's something that's going to go away. But if we see it as a habit and something that we can actually build, a skill that we can build, the ability to create our own happiness, well, then we're not waiting for anything outside of us. We're not going to let our happiness be contingent upon a goal or an experience or a way of life that we want to live, but it's something that we can actually create in our everyday life based on our ability to really strengthen that habit. And I think it's a better perspective on happiness. At least for me, it serves me that happiness is a skill that I can build and not a state that I have to acquire. Because if I'm always looking at it as a state that I have to acquire, then it's usually going to be contingent upon things that are outside of me. A job, an income, a place that I'm trying to get to, an experience that I'm trying to have. When we leave it contingent upon external things, then we have no control over our own internal state. Because happiness is not something that you achieve when you get somewhere, but it's a habit that you build now that helps you get to where you want to go. I think that it's really important for us to recognize that happiness isn't something that we achieve, but it's a habit that we can build that helps us achieve. There's been studies, and many, many studies, that happier people usually accomplish more. And it makes a lot of sense, because if you're happier, you're going to show up better, you're going to have better energy, more people are going to want to be surrounded by you, you're going to get more opportunities thrown your way. Like, life is just going to be, I don't want to say easier, but life would be a hell of a lot more enjoyable if we take on the mindset that happiness is a habit and not a place that I have to get to. Because this idea of a pursuit of happiness, I love I love the movie by Will Smith, but I don't think the ideology serves many people. I mean, the world in itself, most people are unhappy because we see it as a pursuit. We think that once we get somewhere, once we accomplish said goal, then we're going to be happy. But of course, when we leave our happiness contingent upon external things, well, we're never going to actually achieve it. And the third habit is seeking challenge. Now, this is the one that I think that for so many of us, we want to avoid, but it's the most powerful one that has the biggest impact on our life, truthfully. And I've seen this in my life from really starting from a really young age. I've had a quote next to my door, and I'm looking at it as I speak to you, that has been there for probably 3 to 4 years or so. And it says that if you want an easy life, you have to do hard things. And I spoke with Ben Bergeron, the leading coach of all CrossFit athletes. And I think it's so powerful that we spoke about this, because many of us understand it intellectually, but don't put it into practice contextually. And so I'll put this into perspective. Life is going to present you with a lot of challenges. Life is going to present you with a lot of things that you probably are unequipped to deal with. Right? And so if life is going to present you with a lot of challenges, a lot of problems, a lot of hurdles, a lot of obstacles that are going to come your way, well, then you'd like to be prepared for those obstacles. And if you are always challenging yourself every single day and putting yourself in a position to really see what you're made of, well, then when those challenges pop up in your life, you are going to be prepared for it. And use the example of running, because running is something that I found that a lot of highly successful people incorporate in their life. And I'll put this in perspective. If you run a mile, let's just say you want to start running today, and you run a mile, and throughout that mile, you have about 80% of the time, your mind is telling you to stop, because this is your first time running. It is difficult. You don't want to do this. It is frustrating. It's overwhelming. It's stressful. Your body hurts. You want to stop, and you want to give up. And that 20% is probably when you're first getting started and you think, I got this. Like, I can hit this mile. There's nothing getting in my way except me. I'm going to get there. And throughout that entire time, your mind is trying to stop you from going. And I've seen this within myself. Like, when I want to run a mile or 3 miles or 2 miles, whatever that looks like, my mind wants to stop almost automatically. Like, it just wants to stop me from continuing because it hurts. It's stressful. It's pain inducing. It's not fun. Right. But once I get into the groove of actually just going, and I reinforce the mindset that there is nothing going to stop me other than myself, it becomes a game, and it becomes something that I can actually push the limit every single time to see what I'm really made of, because we really don't push ourselves as much as we think. We can go a hell of a lot more than we could possibly imagine, but our mind stops before our body does. And this is why physical activity is so important, because when we push past what we think we can push past, well, then we unlock another level of ourself. And this is why it's so important to seek challenge, because when you put yourself in positions to challenge yourself and you see that you can go further than you think, well, then that translates into every aspect of your life. You become more confident. You start to realize that you can put yourself in positions that you don't think you're capable of accomplishing or achieving, and you can go even further than that. And this is why seeking challenge is so important, but rarely do we really put ourselves in position to seek challenge, let alone every week, but every single day. So to bring it all together, these are the three habits that have had the biggest impact on my life. Number one is learning. When you put yourself in a position to learn, whether it's through books, through life experience, through putting yourself in positions that you don't think that you're capable of accomplishing, you will start to realize that life is a game of just learning. It's just learning. None of us have it all figured out. But if we actively seek opportunities to learn every single day, more opportunities are going to come our way, because most people just don't do that. Life is going to keep presenting you the same lesson until it's learned. And unless you're actively trying to learn every single day, you're going to be stuck in the same lesson for most of your life. Number two is the habit of happiness. We see happiness as a mental state and not a skill that can be developed. You've ascribed meaning to certain experiences, and just because it's happened in the past doesn't mean you have to respond the same way. When you acquire the habit of happiness, you can actually deploy that happiness instead of going to our automatic response, which is reacting to the situation. Lastly, is seeking challenge. You have to put yourself in positions to really see what you're made of, because I promise you it's a lot more than you could possibly imagine. And the biggest thing that holds most people back in life is not that they think too big, but that they think way too small and they actually achieve their goal. And if this was helpful, drop a comment below, share this on your stories on Instagram, @me@JamesBrackenIV, and I am really looking forward to connecting with you.